Activity doesn't necessarily mean accomplishment. Hey there, and welcome to yet another episode of The Shift with Mercy Valarie. I am super excited that you've chosen to be part and parcel of this growing community. Whichever part of the world you get to work this from, thank you once again for being part and parcel of this community. And if you have not subscribed, I'd like to encourage you to kindly hit the subscription button so that you're able to get more content as I roll them out. It's very critical because a lot has been lined up. I have lots of content coming up and lots of interviews that are going to not only intrigue you and transform your life, but also just to grow your capacity as an individual in whichever sphere you find yourself. And that's the essence of the shift with Mercy Valarie, that you'll experience positive shifts from where you are to where you want to be or where you ought to be, and to influence your generation with that capacity and with that degree of whichever things you're going to learn from this particular channel. So once again, thank you so much for being part and parcel of this community. Today I want to share with you on the power or why it's important for you to maximize your working hours. That's why we got this the quote, activity doesn't necessarily mean accomplishment. And this is a quote by John C. Maxwell. John C. Maxwell is a leadership expert. He's a speaker, he's a coach, he's a trainer. He's written over 90 books. And I'd like you to just go get his books and read, because they will really revolutionize the way you think, the way your perspective of things, your perspective of issues, and also expand your capacity and for you to grow to be all that you are created to be. Okay? So John gives an analogy of two men. Now, these two men decided to go and cut down trees. So they all set up, they go to the field to cut down trees. After an hour of cutting down the trees, man number two realized that man number one is no longer cutting down the trees and it's silent all over. And then he decided, I'm going to take advantage of this. I was going to put in more effort to cut down those trees. And he thought, I'm actually going to beat man number one. And after 1 hour again, he realized man number two, he was cutting down the trees, but he stopped again. And he said, you know what, I'm going to even put in more effort to cut down more trees. After another hour, he realized this man is no longer cutting down the trees. So at the end of the day, when they came together and they were analyzing their results, they realized that man number one had cut more trees than man number two. And so man number two was very curious, and he asked man number one, how come you have cut so many trees? And there's a time when you were taking breaks. Man number one answered, when I was taking the breaks, I was sharpening my sword. Bam! I was sharpening my sword. And that's how I was able to cut more trees. I remember when I was working in the corporate world, my boss used to tell me, we don't reward effort, we reward results. So results are what is rewarded. And so I just like to encourage you that in whichever field you find yourself, what is your soul? If you're a lecturer, if you're a speaker, if you're a content creator, if you're a doctor, if you're a student, it's important to get to know what is your soul and ensuring that you sharpen that soul. Sharpening the soul could be going for trainings, could be reading books, could be watching podcasts and listening to other speakers. It could be going back to school to pursue a degree course. So in whichever field, if you're a fashion designer, it could be, going to the fashion world and just getting more creativity and innovativeness from there as well, learning best practice, because iron sharpens iron. So it's important to sharpen your soul, because the extent to which you sharpen your soul will determine the extent of your results, okay? So now let's talk about how to maximize your working hours. Now, there are 2 points I'd like to mention here. We have something called the stress spiral, okay? And there's something called also the Thrive cycle. So this is actually from a gentleman. I'll mention it at the end of this podcast. So the stress spiral talks about work is good, but overworking is not good. At times you get overwhelmed while working, overcommitted, you know, you get overworked, you have a lot to do. Are you a person who keeps on saying yes to everything? When anyone wants a favor in the office, at home, it's a yes all the time. Okay? So, and your priorities get to be hijacked by people. Okay? So, this makes your stress to spiral up and makes you not to maximize on the hours that you have in a day. Let me talk to leaders, and we're all leaders in our various fields. Okay? Now, if you know, leaders are normally very over ambitious, and leaders love progress, and leaders love responsibilities, all right? But it's very, very critical for you to determine what is my thrive cycle. So, for instance, so that I can reduce my stress spiral. For instance, for me, my thrive cycle is anything between midnight, anything midnight going on to the course of the day until about 7 p.m. in the night. That is my thrive cycle. I'm a morning person. So anything that I want to set up to do, I do it in the morning hours. Anything between midnight, I am awake. I'm awake, I am thriving, I'm energetic. My creative senses are very high. My energy levels are just up the sky. All right. So I know my thrive cycle. All right. So your thrive cycle teaches you to do the things that you're best at, so that by the time you are getting into your stress spiral, because my stress spiral will be around 7 p.m. at night to about midnight again. So that particular hour, I tend not to do many things because I'm not very creative and I'm not at my best level. Okay. So when you're in your thrive cycle, you are leveraging on your energies. You are sharp, you're clear, you're bright, you are in the flow. Okay. And this is also a time when, if you're a writer, you get to do the writing that you need to do. But if this is your kind of like your stress, if this is your stress spiral, during a stress spiral, that's a time also to have lots and lots of meetings, so that when you're going into your thrive cycle, you're doing the most important things before your stress spiral catches up with you. Okay. And of course, there are 5 areas that I like to talk about. I'm a person of faith, and so for me, in terms of my thrive cycle, I have to make sure that in terms of my spirituality, I read my Bible, I have studied a book, I have listened to a message before my stress spiral comes up. So when I wake up in the morning, those are key things that I need to do. Emotionally, how are you emotionally? Okay, are you healthy emotionally? If you are married, is your wife and your children, are they healthy? Okay. Or if you're single, are you bitter? Are you maximizing on every area of your singlehood? Okay. So ensure that in your thriving cycle, all these things, you are introspecting and getting to find out: spiritually, am I okay? Emotionally, am I okay? Relationally, in terms of your friendships and the connections that you have, are they healthy connections that you have? Financially, how is your financial mindset in your finances overall? Is it on track or is it off track? These are things you need to look at in terms of your thrive cycle. Okay. Because remember, your thrive cycle, that is when you're focusing your time on things that you need to do. You're focusing your energy there, you're realizing your priorities, and you're living in a way that will help you to thrive tomorrow. And of course, physically, in terms of physical fitness in your thrive cycle, do you get to work? Do you get to jog? Do you get to, to just stretch out and some bit of workouts before you get into your stress cycle, which of course you cannot be able to do all these things. So I'd like to encourage you to ensure that in terms of these 5 areas, your spirituality, if you're a person of faith, your emotionality, your emotional side, relationally, financially, and physically, within your thrive cycle, ensure that you focus on these things. Okay. And then also we have 3 zones. We have the green zone, red zone, and yellow zone. Green zone, you are really at your peak. Red zone, you're fatigued and you can't do much. Yellow zone, you are just in the middle. So ensure that you look into all these things